Today I have a movie that I have seen so many times that while I was watching it, I was basically quoting the whole movie and singing along with it. I am talking about The Wedding Singer, which is a 1998 rom-com romantic comedy. This doesn't feel like a rom-com. This just feels more like a comedy with romance just happen to be in it. It's directed by Frank Coraci. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's written by Tim Herlihy. I don't know how to pronounce that either. But the big thing is it's starring Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. It's the first of what I call the Sandler Barrymore trilogy. They've done three rom coms together, each one a classic on its own. But together, it's just like it doesn't tell an ongoing story. None of the three movies have anything together except the last one does have one small little carryover, but it's more of an Easter egg than an actual like yeah. So basically, this movie takes place in 1985 in Ridgefield, New Jersey, which my whole life I just assumed it was a fictional city. But in researching for this, I found out that it is in fact a real place. It's so yeah, I don't know if it was filmed on location, but if so, I definitely want to visit those locations because, um, yeah, there's a lot that happens in this film, and like I said, I grew up watching this film. I've seen it since I was a kid, and most of it back then didn't make sense. It was just a string of things happening, but like this is the first time I've seen it in a couple years. And I know that I don't remember watching it. I vaguely remember watching it. I think I put it on one night as I was laying down to sleep just for background noise because it's a movie I've seen a million times. I don't need to pay attention. And the reason I even remember that much is because when I went, it's on HBO Max. When I went on to watch it, it already had the purple line underneath of it, and I'm like, wait, when did I watch that? Oh wait, there was yeah. So there was things I forgot about. Like I remembered everything in this movie, but I also forgot everything in this movie. Like I had seen it so many times that it was just a string of quotable lines and funny moments that I kind of lost the story in it. And like this time I was paying attention. I'm watching this. I watched it kind of late. I was gonna watch it earlier, but then I had to go do something. I had to go to a friend's house, basically. Like they were like, "Hey, I need you to come over," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to go over." And we hung out for a bit, and so I'm watching this late. I actually I've seen this movie so many times. I honestly consider just doing the review without watching it because I always watch a movie before I review it. But this one I've seen so many times, I didn't feel I needed to watch it. But now I'm glad I did because I actually I was paying attention the whole time, and I'm like, oh, there is a coherent story here. I mean, I knew there was, but like things that make sense, like passage of time. At one point, they just casually skipped 2 weeks, and I didn't even notice up until now. I never even noticed that 2 weeks just casually go by. There's a line where Drew Barrymore's character Julia says, "Oh, I have a um an engagement party in 2 weeks. I hope you can come." And then in the next shot, it's Adam Sandler's character Robbie approaching a house, and his sister answers the door. Oh, are you going to go to the engagement party tomorrow? So like literally a blink and you miss moment where like 2 weeks just casually go by. Like in my mind, I always thought it was like because it was when she says that it's at night and he's walking away, and whenever he approaches the house, it's still nighttime. So I always just assumed it was the same night. He's not wearing the same thing, but I thought maybe he changed or something. I never really gave it much thought. I just assumed it was supposed to be the same night. That's what happens when you don't pay attention. Even a movie like this, you have to pay attention or you'll miss things. And that just kind of blew my mind. Just that alone, I'm like, wow, did 2 weeks just skip by? What happened in that 2 weeks? We need a sequel to have like an in between cool. But this movie, I don't want to give any spoilers away because this is one that I definitely want everyone to go see. It is readily available. It's on HBO Max. And apparently it's been there for a while because, like I said, this one I always kind of joke about. It's kind of forgotten. It gets memed, and people. I don't think people realize that it's from this movie. There's a line where Adam Sandler was like, "Sir, sir, one more outburst, and I will strangle you with my microphone wire." That was a meme at one point, like one of the yeah, and then the old lady rapping, the rapper to rapper's delight. That was a big meme a long time ago, and it's like, oh, look at this lady dance, rapping. But there's a whole lot in this movie that is actually very memeable and quotable, and I wish it was more popular than it ended up being, that it is currently. Speaking of which, the older lady, her name is Ellen Albertini Dow. She plays Rosie. Uh, I'm not sure how old she was at the time that she made the movie, but she was already like very elderly. Like she looked like she was like 100 years old. And this movie was made in '98. She already looked like she was really old, but she didn't pass away until 2015 at the age of 101. I'm not good at mathing, but if she was 101 in 2015, how old was she in 1998? I don't know. I can't math. Someone has already figured that out in their head as they're listening to this. Like, oh, she was 82 or something. I don't know. Was I right? Probably not. I'm never right. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Like, she lived a lot longer. Like, I was a huge fan of hers, and I knew of her because of The Wedding Singer. But she was in a bunch of stuff. She was even in a lot of like TV shows as like this sweet old lady who who was like does things you least expect. Like she seems like this sweet old lady, and then she's like swearing or like robbing a place or something. She's in another movie called Ready to Rumble, and that one is one I might review someday. It was also a classic. She's basically Betty White before Betty White became Betty White, in the sense that like I don't think Betty White became like meme status for being like the sweet old lady who swears until like after her Snickers commercial. She might have, I don't know, like I wasn't really paying attention to her until then, which really sounds bad. It's like Betty White who? But that was basically Ellen. That I don't think she was as popular as Betty White, obviously, because this is probably the first time you're hearing her name. But definitely not the first time we've seen her because that clip of her rapping was very famous. Like I only knew she passed away because I made a Facebook page a long time ago. She didn't have any social media presence at all because she was really old. And I made a Facebook page, the Ellen Albertini Dow Facebook page. And I even put in the description, like in the about section, this is unofficial. I'm just a fan. And I was like occasionally every now and then like posting like an update. Oh, she's in this movie. Yeah, she's doing this or whatever. But what's funny is apparently she had like there was a small following, but like they were strong because I did get a bunch of messages from people who thought I was her and like thanking me for the laughs and all that. And I was like, oh, I hope somehow I'm able to contact her. But like because of that, I was able, and I because I had that page I was running, I was like every few months or so I would look up news about her, like see if she's in some new movie or something. And then I saw she passed away, and I was like, oh no. So I made the post, and I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm not actually Ellen. This is the fan page. By the way, she passed away. Well, I didn't do it like that, obviously. I consider this a classic. I don't know if everyone would consider this a classic. To me, it is because again, huge nostalgia here. This is like one of the most nostalgic movies to me. Like I've seen it so many times. Again, like I was quoting it. I know people have seen it. It's not like an unknown movie because again, it's Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. It is a known movie. And there are times when I literally quote the movie with people. And especially one of my favorites is they were cones. My sisters and I still say that to each other all the time. And I think one of the big things about this movie that I like is how quotable it is. And like all the songs, it actually feels like it's from the 80s. Like I honestly keep forgetting it was made in 98 because I keep thinking it came out in 98 and it came out in the 80s because they did such a good job at reliving that decade. Well, it's funny that there isn't like any more attention brought to it now because there's such a nostalgic callback now, like with Stranger Things and all like everything 80s that you think it would make a comeback right now. I mean, it's not an actual 80s property, but it is heavily 80s inspired. It takes place in the 80s, and they did a good job at recreating the 80s aesthetic. You would think it would be more popular. It would have made like a resurgence. I honestly would kind of want a sequel, like an update, because like kind of like how they're doing that 70s show, they're doing that 90s show, kind of like updating the characters, what they're doing in the 90s. And I kind of want that. I want an update because I don't want to spoil the end again. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil the end, but the way it ends, I really want to know what happens next, especially all these years later. But like I always joke about how popular this movie could have been. Like it's never gonna get as popular as I joke that it is because like I always talk about like the Wedding Singer extended universe, or like I'll talk about like a Wedding Singer the MMORPG. I can't remember massively multiplayer online role playing game. I keep forgetting what I'm just so used to MMORPG. What does it stand for? Yes, but yes, a Wedding Singer MMORPG, and I joked that it it'll become so big that World of Warcraft and Elder Scrolls Online would have to close because everyone would be playing the Wedding Singer MMORPG. And it's like this massive media empire based on the Wedding Singer. It's bigger than Star Wars and Harry Potter combined. Like that's how I always made that joke. Like, what if like this movie got to that level? And I always thought that would be funny. What? I don't know if y'all heard Navi. She was just like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Shut up, Navi. Well, go save the princess later. I'm doing something." But yeah, this movie is a classic. I already said that. Go watch it. Go watch this movie. Like, I can't say enough good things, and I'm like, I don't. Okay, I want to talk spoilers, but I don't want to spoil anything to this 20-something-year-old movie. Oh, wait. 25-year-old movie. I hate that. But like I said, it's not popular. If I was reviewing something like Wizard of Oz or something extremely popular, I would totally just like, hey, yeah, the movie, the ending, this is what happens. She finds out there's no place like home. But yeah, I don't want to spoil something like this that's not as popular, hasn't been seen as often, and is readily available because I'm I'm planning on only reviewing movies that are readily available on like HBO Max or Disney Plus or Netflix or something because that was with Where the Sidewalk Ends, that was too much hassle just to look for that movie. I like created a free trial to a streaming service just to watch that movie. A streaming service that is actually kind of hard to get a hold of because yeah, like I ended up canceling my trial. It's not one I'm not gonna. I scrolled through it, and even with the subscription, you still have to pay for like the big name ones, and the free movies. That collection is actually kind of small, and even with the subscription, you still have to pay to watch the the more well known movies. So I just canceled that. But anyway, yeah, this movie is one I extremely highly recommend. Oh, rating. I give it a 9 out of 10. There's not a lot of complaints I have with this movie. Um, I think the only thing I could think of is it just kind of ends suddenly. Yeah, like we get to the the climax of the movie, and it gets the resolution, and then 15 seconds later the credits are rolling. I would have liked maybe a couple more minutes to kind of settle in on like what happened after. I mean, it is a great ending. I like the way it ends. It's a very satisfying end, I will say that. But I would have liked a few more minutes with the characters because it literally even it doesn't even have to be like they could still end it where they ended it, but it goes from the climax to snap where it just cuts to some time later. And yeah, I would have liked some in between time, like between the end of the climax and where we last see them. But that's my only complaint, and it's just a small thing. It's a small complaint, and it doesn't ruin the movie. I obviously because I've loved it all these years and still do. But like as I said, I still want a sequel. I know I'm never gonna get it. I I would just really like a Wedding Singer MMORPG.